If you're struggling to get something done, you only have two options. You can push harder, or you can make the task smaller. That sounds almost too simple to be useful, but every method of productivity, performance, therapy, and self-development you've ever encountered is a version of one of those two things. And at your level, misreading which one a moment calls for doesn't cost you an afternoon. It costs you a year. My name is Josh Terry. I help business owners become unstoppable. And here's the pattern I see with founders, is they've already proven they can execute. Drive isn't the problem. Discipline isn't the problem. The problem is they default to the same lever every time they hit resistance, and they don't realize they're doing it. The hard charger always pushes harder. They do longer hours, more intensity, more pressure on the team, and the strategist always restructures. New systems, new framework, new org chart. But both approaches work brilliantly in the right context, and both fail catastrophically in the wrong one. If your effort that used to move mountains is now just grinding gears, you're past the point where generic productivity advice helps. If your systems are just avoidance, then this is a different category of problem to solve, and it only shows up after you've already won at the basic level. Here's the framework in the simplest form. Every challenge you face sits somewhere on a spectrum. On one end, you're capable enough, but you're not applying sufficient force. And the answer is to push harder. On the other end, the task genuinely exceeds your current capacity, and no amount of effort will move it. The answer is to reduce the difficulty of the task. It's so easy to see in the gym. If the bar is a little heavier than you can handle, then you can dig a little deeper and push through it. And when the bar is way past what you can handle, you can strain against it all you want, but the wisest move is to strip the plates. Everyone understands this intuitively when they're standing in front of a squat rack. But when you're restructuring leadership while maintaining board confidence and closing a financing round, the same dynamic is at play. It's just much harder to see. The question isn't whether you can do it. The question is whether you can do all of it at once. And if you can't, then you shouldn't be doing it. Elite operators get it wrong all the time. Take capital allocation, for instance. Let's say you have 7 projects running all at once, and all of them matter. None of them are moving fast enough. The instinct is to push yourself harder. Put in more resources, more meetings, more pressure across the board. But the real problem is scope. 7 projects is too many for any team to move meaningfully on at the same time. You don't need more effort, you need fewer bets. Kill 3 of them, fund 4 properly, and watch everything accelerate. That's making the task smaller. Not because you're weak or not enough, but because you're being strategic about where your capacity goes. Now let's flip it. Let's say you're negotiating a partnership that could double your distribution. The terms aren't perfect, and your instinct says you should wait, restructure the deal, find a way to reduce the risk. But this is maybe a moment where you should push. The opportunity cost of waiting exceeds the risk of imperfect terms. You drive harder on the negotiation to get what you need. You tolerate the discomfort that your strategic mind wants to engineer away. That's making yourself bigger. You have to be bigger or smarter depending on the situation. This is the part most people miss. The lever you're naturally good at becomes your default. And your default becomes invisible to you. So you stop choosing it and you just do it. The way you reach for the light switch without thinking about which hand you use. I watched a CEO running a $50 million company spend 18 months trying to push through a co-founder conflict. He kept scheduling the big summit meeting, the 3-hour clear the air talk, the lay it all on the table session, and it blew up every single time. The task of working through all of the problems all at once was too big. Not because the conflict was unsolvable, but because no one can process 10 years of partnership in 1 hour. He simply needed to break it into pieces so that they started sorting through smaller things per conversation. But his identity was built around pushing through hard things, so he kept pushing, and the relationship kept fracturing underneath him. Once I got him to slow down, it started to work. I worked with a fund partner who had exactly the opposite default. A brilliant strategist. Every problem she encountered got broken into components, analyzed from multiple angles, restructured into a cleaner framework. But when the moment required initiative right then and there, When she needed to walk into a board meeting and say directly that the portfolio company CEO had to go, she would try to restructure again with more data, better framework, a cleaner presentation. But the board didn't need a presentation. They needed her to say the hard thing out loud. She needed to push, and she couldn't stop restructuring long enough to do it. Once she learned her instinct, she was able to flip it. And here's why this matters at a higher level of career so much more than at the beginning. When you're starting out, the penalty for pulling the wrong lever is small, because in reality, if you do anything, things are better. You might lose a week, but you'll learn something and you'll adjust. At scale, though, the penalty compounds. If you decide to push harder when you need to be making things simpler, then you will burn out an entire leadership team, or you will destroy a section of your company. You'll create a culture of brute force where the answer to every problem is more hours and more intensity. Your best people will leave, not because they can't handle hard work, but because they're tired of hearing that they should figure it out faster, when the reality is they were given too much. And if you pull the make it smaller lever when you actually should be pushing hard, then you will never get your product to market. You will be delayed on every single acquisition. You'll restructure your strategy 3 times while a competitor with more nerve takes the position you were optimizing for. Both of these failures look responsible from the inside. The pusher thinks they're showing leadership. The restructurer thinks they're being strategic. Neither one realizes they're running their default program on autopilot. So how do you know which lever a moment calls for? There's really one question to ask. Is the obstacle solved by volume or not? And if it is, then can you deliver that volume or not? If you have the ability and you're not applying enough force, then you should push. You should have the hard conversation today instead of waiting. Stop optimizing the plan and start executing. But if the obstacle genuinely exceeds what you or your team can handle within a window, cut the list. Make it simpler. Solve fewer problems at the same time so you can actually get them done. The skill here isn't choosing one philosophy and committing to it. It's reading the moment accurately. What you need to do one day might be totally different the next, but you need both. You'll notice that different schools of thought talk about this as if they've discovered the whole answer, and they've really only found half of it. High-performance coaches will tell you to push harder, raise your standards, commit fully, go all in. An organizational psychologist will tell you that you need to break things down, reduce cognitive load, simplify the system. But they're both right, and they're both selling half the framework. Creative workarounds, delegation, automation, all of those things are versions of making the task smaller. It's just achieving the outcome with less input. And visualization, commitment, discipline, raising your tolerance for discomfort, those are all versions of making the self bigger. Accessing capacity you didn't know you had and pushing harder. Both categories are full of powerful tools, and you should use all of them. But don't mistake either category for a complete philosophy of getting things done. The full framework is 2 levers, and the mastery is knowing which one this particular moment needs. Make the self bigger or make the task smaller. That's what every breakthrough you've ever had comes down to. And every failure was a moment where you pulled the wrong lever. If this resonates, if you're a founder or an executive who keeps defaulting to the same approach and wondering why certain problems won't move, go to joshterryplays.com and book a call with me. I work with a small number of operators who've already proven they can perform. We figure out which lever is your default, which one you're avoiding, and we build the skill to read the moment clearly enough to choose.